Hi, this is Dennis Dalton, the safety officer, and this evening's safety presentation is on would you go VFR cross country with light rain and scattered storms. Since it is springtime, making go no go decisions isn't always easy. With springtime weather here, you need to be thinking about rain and storms on your cross country flight. And also wind, apparently, without the storms. This has been pretty prevalent lately. And this is this wording here. I was trying to pick up my pen here. Let me get my, there you go. Is something everyone knows about as a private pilot, but I'll just go through this quickly. The destructive force of thunderstorms cannot be overstated. In addition to extremely heavy rain, they can contain strong wind shear, large hail, and severe turbulence, each of which can damage or destroy an aircraft. And these phenomena don't just occur within the storm itself. According to the Aeronautical Information Manual, the visible thunderstorm cloud is only a portion of the turbulent system whose updrafts and downdrafts often extend far beyond the visible storm cloud. Severe turbulence can be expected up to 20 miles from severe thunderstorms. It's pretty easy to go on the NTSB site and pick up multiple examples of this unfortunate outcome. I picked three simply. One is a PA-34 Seneca, which is obviously a twin. 1,200-hour instrument-rated private, fatal, encounters with thunderstorms, all of three of these. And fall out of the sky. There are a lot of them where trying to land in thunderstorms, but there's other issues there, the controllability, downdrafts, outflow, and so on. These are all in flight. 2016 Cessna 210, 288-hour instrument-rated private pilot, and 2019, this T-337C is a Skymaster, pilot, 3 passengers. The only footnote on this one was he wasn't rated in inline twin. He was just single engine. But unfortunately, there's so many examples of these from this kind of situation. And so I just thought it'd be appropriate to maybe just brush over that in this safety meeting. This scenario we're going to look at the end of this presentation. We'll look at a risk assessment. My discussion with Justin in that and was that if this is presented, that make some copies of the risk assessment frat sheets that could be passed out to people before the presentation or after if they wanted to look at one and fill it out. And this one, I thought, well, this is this scenario is based on something from AOPA, but what I thought was interesting was that this one isn't local. So we're dealing with very different altitudes and a whole lot of different considerations here. With an airplane that's very similar to a T-41C, which I thought was a little more interesting than a flight around here where it's very different when you don't know the terrain. You're not instrument rated private pilot flying an IFR capable Piper P-28 Archer from Concord, North Carolina to Roanoke, Virginia. You're taking this 121-mile VFR cross country from Charlotte to Roanoke to avoid a 3.5-hour drive. Well, around here, 121 miles might be more like 2 hours, but that's one thing I thought was interesting. 4:15 p.m. Eastern, probably before daylight savings time, because the issue here is about it getting dark. And 121 miles isn't that long of a flight, although we do have the stats from here that I pulled on the Piper Archer 2. Very similar to a T-41, weights, fuel, etc. You can see the normal cruise is similar. So I just thought I would put this in as a point of reference, which I thought was still okay, rather than downloading the POH again and going over all that with that. This is more about being aware of thunderstorms and a thunderstorm considerations, other than, what are you using? What do you use to consider when doing this? There's a lot of different things around here, such as visibility under thunderstorms, and altitudes are very different, and the winds are very different. And so anyway, so this trip going from down here by Charlotte, which is right here at the blue dot, and they're using ForeFlight, taking pictures. The one from AOPA is what they did, looks like, because that's ForeFlight image, up to Roanoke. There are scattered storms along the route. You're trying to decide if there's a safe route that will get you to Roanoke without large diversions east or west, as those diversions will add hundreds of miles to your route. Weather stations on either side of your route, VFR, MVFR, and even some IFR. Storms are highly localized, and it's tough to know exactly how bad the weather will be below the clouds. As you approach Roanoke, there will be areas of terrain as high as 4,000 feet MSL. If you wait it out for a few hours, you'll arrive at night. While you are night current, you are also acknowledged that you'd be navigating around terrain and storms in the dark. So what's your plan? So, I felt that was somewhat interesting. It is, hilly, but, for us, it's like foothills, but 4,000 feet. Density altitude of this aircraft, I think service ceiling was 13 something anyway, which is not an issue. But this is some, how this stuff is. It's moving. It's always going to move, and in an hour, this picture looks very different, I think, right? Let me get on my button here. As most of you know, if you use ForeFlight, red dots are IFR, blue dots. This is red, but it's kind of pink on my screen. Blue dots marginal VFR, and green dots indicate VFR, where we used to have, with the black and white, how that goes. Surface progs, you'll get the solid circles and the 3/4 black and so on. But anyway, we've got full color. If you're unable to fly through the rain midway along your route, you could turn south and divert to Greensboro. Greensboro is this Charlie guy here, is what they're saying. So I guess if you run into this arrangement right here, which who knows, you could go back down to here. If you do make it to Roanoke and storms over the field, you can divert to the north. Well, this scenario described in that way, and I left the wording that was used in the OPA because, where would depend on, this would be a whole lot longer video to go over what are you going to use and which airports are you investigating, and would those airports even be, this airport here, which is, and I don't know why this one's blue with no precip. Here's a green one, which looks like there's some stuff coming. So, by the time you get there, this could be up here. And so how many airports do you investigate, before you leave? And that is a problem. You should have to be very familiar with these, as you would around here. This trip here would be like flying from Colorado Springs to Trinidad, basically. Of course, you don't have as many options as you have here. You've got a lot of airports, and all the ones with the magenta hard and soft lines around them all have instrument approaches, which of course are not instrument rated. Okay, so, but again, this is about assessment and just something for you to think about. This is not about solving a problem. I did present one of these last year where it was my own problem. I think I went to Kansas, picked some things up in my plane, and I talked about the same assessment issue. If you aren't able to fly through the rain midway along your route, okay, I already said that. If you make it to Roanoke, you can divert to north. If you'd like to at least give it a shot and see how things go before canceling the flight. Well, maybe. There's a lot of factors there. Current weather along the route. Okay, LJQF down here. Departure. What I'm going to do is read these METARs, and there's a couple interesting things. I'll try to just go through them. Of course, this is at 2195. There's no wind. 10 statute miles, which means it's clear. Scattered 10,000. Temperature 3331, which is kind of tight. Temperature dew point, altimeter 3001. Midway point north, I believe it's this one. I went back on another sectional online and was trying to look and see where that was. Interesting thing about this flight, you're doing this thing in Class E. I mean, there's really not any Class G, anything up to what you're flying unless you're running right off the treetops when you go east. Everything's E. So mid-route, okay, at 1955, you got 320 at 3 is the wind, no big deal. Broken 800, overcast 1400. You got to be 500 feet below the clouds. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that's around here. Temperature 2321. It's lower, but it's still tight. Which anything less than 5 it's raining. Altimeter 3005. Remarks AO2 means precipitation discrimination, or it has a precipitation discriminator, which means it can tell between rain and snow. Precipitation here is 0.3 of an inch. This temperature thing here, T means temperature. It has 2 sets of 4. Okay, 0228 and 0214. The 0 means it's a positive. 1 would mean it's a negative. 2 means it's the lowest temperature in the last 6 hours. So this one's 28 and 14. So that spread was a little wider, as the lowest temperature and the widest spread within the last 6 hours. Well, that makes sense, I guess. Okay, this one is midpoint south, which would probably be this one, I'm guessing, right here. And I'll say why is because, I'll tell you in a minute here, 1955 auto 010 at 6. So that'd be coming out of the, 010 out of the northeast. 10, they aren't saying 10 plus, it's 10, light. Thunderstorms in the area, scattered 1,800, overcast 4,000, 2625 temperature spread, that's real tight, 3004 on the altimeter. Remarks, precipitation discriminator, lightning, distant, all quadrants. Precipitation, 0.4 of an inch. So yeah, it's raining, but it's VFR. Again, temperature spread 57.51, which is in the last 6 hours. It's the lowest. Now we're down up to destination here. One thing I want to say about this one, there was no visibility on this midpoint north one right here. I didn't see one, where the visibility here was 10 on this one. So this one could have been green, could have been blue. Destination up here, 250 at 6, 10 statute miles, a few clouds at 28, broken at 12,000. That's pretty good. A little wider spread on the barometer, on the temperature dew point. 3005 altimeter. Remark, precipitation discriminator on the this one though, class Charlie, is not automated, you'll notice, and it shouldn't be, where these two are autos, right? And this one had no visibility, okay? And that would have been this one and this one. Lightning distant, and it doesn't say all quadrants, it says southeast and south. Usually when it gives a distance, which means southeast and south, and that's about right, it's at least 5 miles, which you can tell by this ring it is, not more than, and between 5 and 30 is why it says, gives you the distance. Or it doesn't give you distance, but when it says where, it means distance. This is standard sea level pressure in tenths, if you're interested in that. So that'd be 1016.1. And again, the temperature on this one I think isn't right. I mean, it says temperature, it says positive number, it says lowest temperature in the last 6 hours, but it gives an 89 and then 28. It's probably a 29, is my guess. Okay. You get on my button here. Well, yeah, the visibility requirements are determined by time of day, altitude, and airspace. Your route will be flown during the day. Depending on how high you want to fly, you'll either be flying in class G or E. Yeah, well, E is pretty low there. Depending on whether E, you can get around those. There's an awful lot of airports with IFR rings around them, so I think, you know, that's 1,200 feet. But then you got to be 500 below the clouds, which in most cases were 1,400. So weather stations along the majority of your route indicate that current conditions exceed VFR cloud and visibility requirements, but not by much. You will be departing from Class D and landing in C. That's all good. So again, you know, these are your private pilot things. 500 below, 1,000 above, and you know, or depending. But anyway, it's that 2,000, that 500 below is an issue here with flying around in this particular flight. Destination airport forecast. Fortunately, Class C Roanoke Airport does have a TAF. Current time period indicates VFR conditions deteriorating to marginal between 5 and 6 p.m., including moderate rain, thunderstorms, cumulonimbus clouds. Later on, the TAF once again improves to VFR conditions. This says, behind my head, there are thunderstorms southeast of the airport slowly moving northbound. Which are these? And again, this is a 4-flight shot off the screen. So slowly to me is, I'm concerned about slowly. I would want to investigate that myself. With light rain indicated between scattered thunderstorms, you might be able to find VFR conditions good to make it to Roanoke. Might. The other word I don't like is probably. Another problem is the terrain. Roanoke is located in a valley. And peaks nearby extend to 4,000 feet MSL. That would make scud running through the rain, whatever's behind here, is probably not good. Again, knowing the terrain, and that's why you know, if you want to take a trip somewhere and you've never been there before, the homework gets really ramped up. You know, on your home turf or playing in your home field certainly has a lot of advantages. I would be really having to do a little homework there. I wouldn't want to be running around in there unless I knew what was going on. There's no great way to analyze the conditions below the bands of light rain along your route other than local airport weather reports. Airports to the north and south indicate marginal VFR and IFR, but the airport closest to your destinations are VFR at this time. Flight has gray areas because the weather exceeds legal requirements on paper, but you also don't have adequate way to see where the pockets of rain will result in conditions becoming IFR, since you are only VFR rated. There's a lot to take into account here, and there's no right answer. Safest option will always be to stay on the ground, but that's risk associated with taking off in any plane. Should you depart and see how things go, turn around if conditions get worse? How do you do a flight risk assessment? You can adopt the flight risk assessment tool, which if you have that sheet that was passed out, there's 3 sections to it. This list can be customized and is a simple sample list appropriate for flying a simpler, complex single-engine airplane. Any item with a risk value specified as NG is a no-go item. There's legalities to that, or why they're even in here, but we can talk about that. I'll talk about that a little bit later. This basically, the ones that's about pilot is like the IM safe. It's just, you can have an IM safe which has your 5, general, your general concerns, or you can list them specifically, which is what a frat thing is. Like if you say, well, did I bring my glasses, my readers? I left them. No, I don't have them anymore. Look, I'll take them off. Can you still read that? Yeah, but if it gets dark out, it gets harder to read them. Well, So it's those kinds of things where, you can add your own things in here. A 0 means it has no risk. There are 3 sections. A total value of over 20 for all 3 sections together is a no-go, which means the more you put numbers in here as opposed to zeros, the worse it gets. But again, it's obviously, you have to be honest with yourself, but everybody is as a pilot, or you should at least try to be. Flying Aero Club rental aircraft makes this section, section 2, easy to get a low score, possibly 0. Although it's your responsibility as PIC to make sure all the paperwork is in order and any discrepancies are addressed. Mostly that would be like here, number 5, because of course, we have great maintenance here, and great, Neil's great. So, what you got here is all this stuff's, yeah, sure, this stuff's going to be complied with, but your job, it's your responsibility to know these things are all complied with. But number 5, who knows what happened in the last flight because it's a rental aircraft. That's the only issue with rental aircraft. Well, the baggage door doesn't stay shut. That's one of mine. The door doesn't shut well, it keeps popping open, and you've got 100 other things. So if there's anything written up, or if it isn't written up, when you do your run-up, this is one place where you almost have to do your run-up and your checks very diligently to know whether it's no or no go. If you put this as a 0 right now and you go out and pre-flight the aircraft, this could change to a 2, or maybe if it's rental aircraft for me, I'd make this one, this one and this one, 8 and 2 makes more sense to me. That's a 10, that's half of your 20. And to me, these 2 right here could really wreck your day, in this kind of a thing. So again, doing this and then keeping these 2 open for your pre-flight and run-up. And again, I just repeated this no-go thing. This one's the most complicated, this section, because it refers to weather and your experience level and how you feel about your piloting techniques. So I always feel that this one, if I just go down and plug numbers in here, even if these are all things that I don't think about all the time or I'm not concerned about them, I find there's a trend in here for me that is very interesting, because I might see a lot of numbers in here. And if I see a lot of numbers over here, I'm going to go back and think about it, even if it's not a big deal or something I don't usually look at. And that's why I feel this is sometimes valuable to be aware of and think about. And FRAD is about making up your own, okay, in these 3 sections of pilot, plane, and operation. And that's really all it is. And thunderstorms and something that's going to get dark and it's someplace you've never been before, all those things, they can create a problem. And this one in particular, where I got this, you know, the items such as not having a valid flight review would cause a violation of regulations and numerical values. It's assigned rather than listing the item as a no-go because of frequent violation of these items. And I'm just saying that if you download one here, and it's not, you know, it's not to be interpreted as an endorsement of violating regulations. But again, these are just all things. You can download a lot of different ones of these, and you can customize them to fit your needs. There's one in MS Word, I think is this one. But if you just typed in FRAT, you can download one. I didn't put a link on here, where you can easily add and delete items by editing the tables. You know, the risk values are arbitrary, and again, you can give them higher or lower numbers. Especially, you know, to me, if it's my airplane, what I'm going to look at is squawks is going to be a 0, so I probably wouldn't even put it in. But in a rental airplane, yeah, it's going to be an 8 or a 10, half of the stuff, because I have no idea what this plane went through in the last 2 hours before I got it, you know, even though I know it has very good service and everything should be up to snuff with the paperwork, but paperwork doesn't fly the plane, the parts do. So if an item applies that has an equal value to the specific risk value, all that means is if it has a value, then it's a risk, you know. And if it doesn't apply, you give it a 0. So that completes the safety presentation, and I hope you just hang on to one of those sheets if, you know, if they were passed out to you or you took one, and just try it out sometime and see what you think. It's you know, and anyway, so that's it. So thanks, and see you next month.